This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, welcome to the show. I present a conversation with Arjen Lucassen. He's been in too many bands to mention them all, but I'll mention a few. Ayreon, Star One, Guilt Machine, The Gentle Storm, Stream of Passion, Vengeance, so many others. But the catalyst for this conversation is down to his collaboration with the supremely talented Simone Simons from Epica. Together they have crafted the superb Vermillion album. Is it Simone's first or second solo album? It might be her first. Either way, Vermillion will be out soon if it's not already out. Great stuff, and if you're listening to the podcast apps, I'm going to play a tune in the moment. But about this chat, okay, I was able to discuss the collaboration between Ayreon and Simone, the why, the big factor. Why did they decide to do this? Songwriting, the whole thing. The technical and some of the musical aspects, lyrical content, and then we dive into Ayreon's, his personal stuff. So reflection and future projects. So many topics covered here. We really do go there in this one. It's I've listened to quite a few chats with Ayreon, and a lot of people super fan over him, and I understand that. But it's nice to get to the bottom of things as regular listeners to the show can anticipate. All right, I mentioned I've got a tune to share. If you're listening via the podcast apps, and you'll hear it in the moment. Of course, it's from Simone's new album, Vermillion. It is titled R.E.D. And once it's done, you'll hear from Ayreon. For you people on YouTube, you probably know the drill by now. I can't play music on the platform, so we'll cut to the chat straight away. Either way, let's cut to it.
Mystery.
Lovely to finally catch up with you. You're one of those blokes that's been on the radar for some time, I must say. And John is a bloke that tends to make things happen, so I'm appreciative of this opportunity.
Cool. Excellent.
How have the calls been going with us Australian media types?
Sorry?
How have the conversations been with the Australian media people?
Oh, I love it. I love the Australians, really. It's a cliche, I know, but ever since, Crocodile Dundee, I'm such a huge Australia fan. But not just that, I love Australians. Of course, I have Mike Mills,
Yeah.
who I always work with at Toe Hider, and he's such a great guy too. I don't know, it's always fun. It's always fun, and so yeah, I had 3 interviews before this, and it went really well. It was big fun. So
fantastic.
Good
okay.
thing.
Yeah. Does it surprise you in any way? I imagine it probably doesn't. So I don't know whether I'm framing the question appropriately, but the fact that you have people in Australia that have listened to your work for years and admire what you do, does that surprise you in any way?
It surprises me that anyone listens to my music. Really, it's so weird, man. When I made the first Ayreon, I mean, it's called The Final Experiment, but I really thought it would be my final experiment, because for 35 years I'm trying to please the fans, and do rock music that I think people will like, or record labels will like, or and finally I do something I like, and I think people are gonna hate it, and it's gonna be folk and metal and classical music and atmospheric music and Pink Floydy music and electronic, and I'm gonna throw it all in.
Yeah.
And there was an audience no one knew about. It was an invisible audience, and you saw it climb up the charts, and it's like, what's happening here? We don't get it. People like Nirvana, that's what they're listening to, not some weird progressive rock opera. So yeah, it surprises me anyone listens to my shit. It's I think maybe I was there. It's weird, but maybe I was there at the wrong time, and maybe that was my success. I was the only one doing it back then.
Yeah, precisely. I was just going to
maybe
make
if
that
I would
point.
have done it in the 70s. Yeah, if I would have done it in the 70s, when you had Jesus Christ Superstar, War of the Worlds, and Operation Mindcrime, and whatever. Wait, that was 80s. Sorry, but anyway, no one was doing it, and there was an audience waiting for it, but no one knew about it. So yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah. Well, 35 years later, here you are working with Simone Simons, one of the most gifted front people out there in the business, full stop, at the moment. And I have had a conversation with her, and a lovely lady. She certainly impressed me with how congenial she was when I spoke to her. Yeah, and you, to be honest, you don't always get that when you're dealing with people who are in the limelight, in the spotlight.
I know.
Yeah, you get it.
I know. I mean, I've worked with 200 people now.
Yeah.
And there are some bastards among them,
Yeah. Well, you can imagine from my perspective, some of the conversations. Some of them don't go that well to the point where I don't even release it. But Simone and is a lovely lady, but it's a partnership that works on paper, but that doesn't always translate to working musical collaboration. But of course, it does. It's a magnificent album, Vermillion, that you've conjured together. So I'm not going to ask how you.
Thanks, mate. Thanks.
I'm not going to ask how you started working together, but more why. Why did you guys pick each other to share this experience?
First time I met Simone, I think she was between 15 and 20 years old, and she was this little girl, and she came to me at a show with her boyfriend, who was Mark at the time. We really enjoy your music, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm a singer too. And I thought, yeah, sure. I meet them all the time.
Yeah.
And then, she got really popular with Epica. And it was like, oh my God, this girl is really good, and she has the charisma, and she has the looks, and she has the voice. I totally lost the question now. Where did I go?
No, you're answering it, which is not how did you guys come to collaborate, but why did you choose to
right
with each other?
Yeah. Well, so I guess the first reason is that she likes my music. Again, which is weird to me, why a young person would like like my music. I can understand old bastards like me enjoying it, but she likes my music, and I love her voice.
Mm.
So at some point, I invited her to sing on my album 01011001.
Mhm.
There's a nerdy title for you. The Ayreon album. I think that was about 15 years ago or something. And it was the first time we worked together, and it was so much, like you said, it was so much fun. There's a connection immediately, and she
Yeah.
has a sense of humor, which is very important for me, which you Australians have. I mean, you Australians have a sense of humor, a very cool sense of
Thanks.
humor. Yeah, really. And uh, she sang great. And it just was one song of 2.5 minutes, unfortunately, because I didn't know how it would go, But ever since then, we worked so many times, and she's been on so many Ayreon albums. And of course, she was in the two last live shows. And of course, we're talking about music and finding out that we like the same stuff. We like the darker stuff, and we like the very emotional stuff. We like the heavy stuff like Rammstein, but the melodic stuff like Muse. But we also like the ballads. And so, yeah, I think it was only a matter of time that we would work together. And she approached me, I think, 5 to 6 years ago, if I would be up for it. I said, of course, but then life gets in the way, and I had so many other projects.
Yeah.
But this time I was working on the Ayreon live shows, which gave me some extra time, because wasn't a full-time job. So that was the point where I contacted for, okay, let's do this. Let's have a lot of conversations, Skype conversations about what's the direction we're going in. What is the concept going to be? What's it going to look like? Because that's always important for me. You got to have a plan, and you shouldn't, you don't have to stick to the plan, but you got to have a plan in the beginning. Otherwise, it's, I
Exactly.
did that
Spot
before,
on.
and then it just, yeah, it goes off trail somewhere, So you got to have that plan, and then constantly change the plan, and that's what we did.
Yeah, you're one of the few metal, actually musicians, full stop. I'm not going to say metal because I think it's true of music in general, that I'd classify from a listener's perspective as having an academic approach to writing and performing and even playing. Would you agree?
That I don't know. Academic gives me the feel. Sorry if I misunderstand the word. That I know what I'm doing. I really don't. I never learn music. I can't read music. I can't read scores. I can't write music. I have no idea what chords are called. I just go in studio and I start recording, and people always say like, I would never have done that. That's weird. For me, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I never learned this stuff. I just go for it. So, yeah, I never learned anything, just from experience, because I never learned anything. I could not have done this when I was in my 20s. I started Ayreon when I was 35. And in my 20s, I was in rock bands, and we were playing straightforward rock and roll. I mean, our lyrics were, "I see a beautiful blonde and a pretty brunette. I said, come on, girls, let's get wet." That was that was the stage I was in when I was in my 20s. You just wanted to play, you just wanted the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. But yeah, at some point, I realized that's not my world, and that's not my thing. And I'm glad I've been through that, been there, done that.
Yeah.
I think that's why I now found my peace, and became this boring old recluse.
Just to frame the question, I was watching one of your videos, and I think there's something like 20 singers on stage. There's orchestral instruments, there's the heavy rock instruments as well, and there you are in and amongst it all. And there's a level of mastery that you have to get to in order to achieve that. Otherwise, it sounds like a mess. And I'll throw Metallica under the bus here, like with their S&M project, which sounds like but you make it happen.
Okay,
You're one of those
yeah.
blokes that makes it all sound like as though it's meant to be like that.
Well, I see the big picture. I think that's my strength. You know, if I look at Rick Beato and he's telling us all about these chords and about these, I don't know, diatonic, what I don't know what it means, you know.
Yeah.
But I see the big picture. You know, if that's why I said you need to have a plan, and then I need to have that big picture, and then I look for the guys who can make it happen. You know, because this live stuff, I could not do that on my own. You know, I really need help there. Which in this case is Joost van der Broek, who plays the keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows how it works, and he writes out all the scores for the classical musicians, for the violins and the flute and the cello. Because that's not something I can do. I mean, I know how it should sound and I know what they should play, you know, but I can't write it out and I can't. Yeah, I've always had an ear. You know, I'm not a very talented musician. I'm not a great singer. I'm not a great guitar player. And this is not being humble, you know, this is something I know. But what I'm really good at is I have the ears. I mean, already as a kid, I could hear productions, you know, I could hear this production is good and this production is not good, you know, already when I was like 12, you know, when I started listening to music. So yeah, luckily I have that, you know. So many people also often ask me, you know, can you learn me how to mix, teach me how to mix? And it's no, I can't, you know, you either hear it or you don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, learning how a compressor works or learning how a limiter works is not going to make you a better mixer. You know, if you look at the plugins I use in Pro Tools, it's the most simple, you know. I use this one because it has just one button, you know, a lot or less.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, academic, I don't know.
There you go. Yeah. Well, another aspect is, look, I appreciate what you're saying about your lyrics early on, but, you know, we've all been there and written or enjoyed bands who had lyrics like that. But, I mean, these days, like with Vermillion, you've got an album that touches on concepts like artificial intelligence, what's going on in the environment, but you're mixing that in with personal experiences. So did you and Simone, did you both did you share lyrics, and can you share how the lyrics evolved?
Yeah, sure. Basically, the whole idea is Simone's, of course. She contacted me. She had the whole plan. She knew it. She wanted to call it Vermillion. And we've been talking a lot about lyrics. And I was like, hey, let's do sci-fi, you know, and fantasy. And she was like, no way, you know, that's not what I do. It's what I do, but it's not what she does at all. She wanted it to be very personal. Which is fine, you know, which is a challenge for me, which is a new thing, which is always good. So she basically came up with all the song titles and all the concepts. So all the topics, what the song should be about. So she made this whole list. And then I just started writing the music. And when I had a song finished, let's say the song Aeterna, it's this huge song, you know, with huge choirs and big synth sweeps and loads of guitars. So yeah, I looked at the list. Okay, this is Aeterna, clearly, you know. So then it was my job, you know, to somehow put Aeterna in that song and come up with vocal melody lines. Then I record nonsense lyrics just for the melody. So I just go into studio and I sing it and it's total rubbish. Then I send it to Simone. Is this what you know, the melodies? Is this cool? Is this what you think it should be? And then of course she has some changes like do this or do this or that. Then she agrees, you know, then she agrees with the concept. She agrees with the title. Then my girlfriend Lori, who is from LA, so she's a native speaker, and she's also an English teacher. She was an English teacher, and she's very creative and good at writing lyrics. So then basically she made something out of the rubbish, you know, that I sang. She writes a lyric, then I sing guide vocals again. These guide vocals go to Simone.
Yeah.
And they're all, of course, an octave lower, you know, because I can't sing as high as Simone.
I can relate.
Yeah, and she loves it. She loves my voice, and I'm always apologizing. Sorry for these shitty vocals, and I hope you can listen through it, and I hope you can understand that this is a strong melody because my crap voice. But she loves my voice, and then well, then we work on the little, changing the lyrics here and there a little bit, things she doesn't agree with. And then she comes over. She came here 5 times for 3 days. Um, and then we record the vocals. And as we record the vocals, we're still changing stuff, still changing melodies, still changing words or lyrics, or, in the studio, you'll find out that some words don't work, that
Yeah.
they don't sing well. If you have to sing a high note and it's an E, you can't open your throat, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, it's a whole process basically. It's a whole cooperation. So it's hard to say um, exactly, who is responsible for what.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Well, you've worked on something approaching 50 albums in total, probably more, but I was trying to count, but it's, different sources provide different numbers. In other words, you've been doing this a long time and you've almost done everything, or have you? And that's the question. Was there anything brand new on Vermillion that you tried out?
Well, that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing. It's getting harder and harder for me, like you said, over 50 albums, all chord progressions I already did that I like, and I'm getting to that age where I don't even remember what I did before. Really, I have this circle of friends. I call them the circle of trust, and I sent them all my ideas. Like, did I do this before? Yeah, you did on the human equation. There's this chorus there, and this is the same chorus. Oh shit, I did, So it's getting harder for me. Um, so it was very good for me as a control freak who always does his own thing. I'm always my own boss and I do whatever I want. It was very good for me to write an album for someone else, who had a clear
Yeah.
idea what she wanted. And she clearly let me know if she didn't like something, and what direction she wanted to go in and why she didn't like something. And I love challenges. I'm always looking for challenges, and it's getting harder and harder because I did so much, and So I really think this album got the best out of me.
Mm.
Things like Red that's out as a single now. I really think it's something I haven't done before. It's
Mhm.
like kind of combining Rammstein with female melodic vocals, and then it's industrial sounds, and then it's very frustrating for me to go to YouTube and read the comments and it sounds just like Ayreon. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, really? Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You can never read
I
too
don't
much into
know.
the
I don't
comments,
know.
though.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's true. But I think, I've created my sound. I agree with that. By
Yep.
now I've I tried out all my amps, I tried out all my guitars, all my speakers, all my mics, and I know which one sounds best, So I always use the same. So it's true that over the years I've developed my sounds, but for instance, to answer your question,
Mhm.
I've always worked with analog synthesizers. I've got this whole studio full of old synthesizers
Mm.
and mini Moogs and Prophets and shit. And this album, I did a whole album with plugin called Omnisphere, which is like all digital synths. So that
Mm.
was new for me. Like, okay, let's not use my old analogs. Yet let's not use the Hammond all the time. Let's use some different sounds there, and that was very good for me because it made me work hard, to find cool digital synths and cool sequencers and cool sounds that
Mm.
I've never used before. But then again, in the end, maybe I'm the only one hearing that. People will just say, "Oh, even these synth sounds are typical Ayreon." I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what about challenges or obstacles on their album? Was there anything that was really a tough nut to crack?
Oh, good question. Going through the list here in front of me. Well, um, first thing she talked about when we were before we did the album was like she wanted because she's good at that, at ballads. She wanted a lot of ballads, and I was like, oh crap, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, but I'm not. Ballads for me is like a Pink Floyd song, which is not like a typical Disney kind of ballad or something. So that was a bit scary for me. Like, oh, can I do that? Can I do ballads? But I think I did it in my own way, uh, which is it's still pretty dark, apart from the last track, Dark Night of the Soul. That's like really a sappy Disney ballad. But that was also a challenge, Can I do that? Can I make a sappy Disney ballad? And first I was afraid Simone would be like, oh no, this is too sappy. But she loved it, and she made it totally her own lyric on that. She immediately came with the title Dark Night of the Soul. And I could hear it, and I said, okay, we're not going to help you at all. You're going to write that lyric on your own. And her voice elevates it, When I heard the instrumental song, this is not strong enough. But then she sings it, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, this works. Yeah. So in the end, I think there's a pretty good combination of a balance between heavy and atmospheric, and industrial and progressive. And for me, the most important thing was melody. It has to have nice melodies, and it has to have a cool groove. That was very important.
That sums it up. There you go. Yeah, it's a very good summary right there. What about if you could compose a soundtrack, or if you were approached to compose a soundtrack, was more likely for any classic sci-fi or fantasy novel? Which one would you choose?
I'm terrible to tell. I'm terribly ashamed to tell you that I've never read a book in my life.
Really? I've got to say, mate, that shocks me. You're such a smart fella. That surprises me. Yeah, you mean you've literally written a novel? Is that what you're saying?
I know.
Really? Okay.
I've never read a book. I don't have the patience. Also, I can't sit. That's why I'm standing now. And I only sit when I eat food, so I wouldn't know when to read. I don't have the patience to read. I want to be creative. I want to be honest, and I've been like that all my life. So it's terrible, but no. Even at school, of course, you had to like read 15 books in each language, to get your exam. And I just faked it. My brother is a big reader, and he's also a teacher. So he used to give me these summaries of books, and I just read the summary. I could do that, that was just one page. And just talk my way out of it. I've always been good at languages, so that saved me. Yeah. But to answer your question, it would probably be like a dark sci-fi movie, some Stanley Kubrick or stuff like that, or like a spaghetti western. I love the Ennio Morricone stuff. Yeah. Basically, the album Transitus that I did with Ayreon, that was supposed to be a movie. So that's got all these styles. That's got like the John Carpenter. I loved John Carpenter, like Halloween. So simple and so effective, and that's what would come out, I guess. But I don't know if I'm good. If I could do it, if I could write for someone else, I could do it for Simone because we were on the same wavelength. But could I write, watch a movie and then write music for it? I don't know. But I've never been asked, so I've never.
Yeah, I hope someone does ask you. Yeah, I was watching some clips of the movie Starman the other night. You mentioned John Carpenter, and that's one of his films, and that came to mind immediately. I know he did a very good job.
Sorry, the reception is really bad. I did.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't hear the film name. Sorry.
Starman. The film.
Oh, Starman. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I reckon you do a bloody good job at that.
That was with Dennis Quaid, or.
Oh God.
No, Jeff Bridges.
Yes, correct.
Jeff Bridges.
Correct.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I loved Starman. Oh yeah, Jenny Hayden.
Yes.
I remember the woman's name. Oh my God, I'm such a nerd. And he thought her name was Jenny Hayden, in one. Yeah, very funny. Yeah, I loved it.
Well, if you had to choose on that theme with Starman, do you remember how they sent some songs into deep space and Saturn V, I think it was, and that was how the alien worked out Earth
Hmm.
existed and came to Earth because he felt he was being welcomed. If you had to choose,
Right, right,
if you had to choose
right,
an
right.
album or a song or something that you composed, put it that way, and it was going to be sent into deep space for some civilization to discover, what would it be?
Oh man, what a difficult question. Like you said, 50 albums. Well, I made a song on my solo album. Our Imperfect Race is called.
Okay.
Whoa, I had that answer really fast. I'm proud of myself. Um, yeah, it's called Our Imperfect Race, and it's basically it's a very atmospheric song, a lot Floydy. Um, and those lyrics are really what I think is happening, in the universe. And you know, it basically it says like, is this all there is? Are we just one tiny blip in space that no
Hmm.
one will ever know about? We'll just die out, and that was it. No one will ever know. There's no other civilization. And what would an alien think of us? If he would come here, what would he think of our imperfect race? Would he
Hmm.
find it cute, or would he find it weird, or would he find it threatening? Or that's always what I think about when I read about wars. People waging war, and then an alien would come and they would like, wait, guys, you've got this perfect planet here with loads of water and the Goldilocks
Yeah.
atmosphere, and everything is perfect there. And you killing each other. Like, what the fuck? I always, yeah, that's all what I always think. Like, how would an alien see this? And that's why I like Star Trek so much, because they handle these topics. They really, sci-fi is a great way to talk about humanity in a roundabout way, I guess. So
Have you ever?
yeah, Our Imperfect Race.
Okay, there you go. Great answer. Yeah, I've got to check it out. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Plant medicine, ayahuasca, psilocybin, mushrooms. Have you ever tried anything like that?
Sorry, can you say the first word? Yeah, the
Uh,
reception is really low.
yeah, sorry, ayahuasca and psilocybin, so magic mushrooms, that sort of thing. Does that interest you at all?
No, not at all. No. um I've been through that stage, of course, in the 80s when I was touring the world. There was a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I loved it that point. But I am too much of a control freak to lose control.
Yeah.
I'm very afraid to lose control. Even when I used to be drunk, or take ecstasy or whatever, or even even marijuana.
Yeah.
Uh, I would always find my limit and not go over it, because I'm too much of a control freak, and I would be afraid to do shit that I wouldn't do, if I would be sober. And so no, basically, I never dared. I always think, I talk about it with Laurie. When we're really old, we're going to do all that shit. We really don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
We're gonna get all those mushrooms, and we're gonna try everything. But right now, I'm totally healthy. I'm 64, and I we work out every day,
Looking
and
good.
we
Yeah.
we eat healthy, and strong as ever. And I right now we're very much into keeping that up. Keep staying healthy. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically, like, really boring. We're really boring, antisocial recluse. Um,
You're busy as
and
well.
yeah, but that's the only way I can do what I do. People often say, "Yeah, you must be a workaholic." I'm not at all. It's just basically I have no life. I have no social life whatsoever. I have no family. I have no kids. I have no friends. I have friends, but not to
Yeah.
socialize with. I can put all my time in this, and that's why I can do it.
Yeah. What about
So
if you
I
could?
would.
Wait, sorry, you go. You go.
No. I was ready.
Oh, I was just thinking, with all that you've accomplished, though, you're one of those few people that I think this question's almost redundant, but I'm going to ask it anyway because people that have accomplished what you have, I like to ask it because I think it's important people hear the answer, and it's this: if you could go back to the beginning of your career and you could have one conversation with yourself, what do you think you'd say?
Nothing. No, nothing. I wouldn't change a thing because of course I would want to say, hey, don't try to please the band members, don't try to please the audience, don't try to please the record label, do your own thing. But if I would have done that when I was 20 or 15, my life would look different. And
Yeah.
maybe I would have gotten to where I am now. Maybe I had to go through all that shit. I had to go through all the misery with band members and with record labels and the failed albums, the flopped albums, because believe me, I had them. My first solo album, it was one of the biggest flops ever. I would have hated to have told myself, hey, don't make that solo album because it's going to flop, because it had its purpose, that I went through that. And when I was 35, I started Ayreon, and I'm glad, I got the big. I mean, I've always had a little bit of success. I've always been able to live off the music, ever since the 80s. I entered a professional band, which was good. I never had a job in my life. But at 35, the big money started coming in and the big success started coming in. And I'm really happy it went that way and not the other way around. There's so many guys who have that. Yeah, really. And I know people, who had that, who were like total geniuses and total talented. And they had their big moment when they were 15 or 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's downhill from there. That's awful.
Yeah.
And for me, it's still uphill. And it was always baby steps. It was always baby steps up. And that's the way to go. So I would be very afraid to tell myself anything, because that would change the outcome of my life.
Yeah, you've already touched on this, and if not answered it in part already. But again, I'm going to ask the question because it's important that I think people hear it. But you're in an industry that's claimed a shitload of victims to drug use, and alcoholism is the number one in musicians.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It's bloody awful.
And I know I've worked with a lot of them, and at least 10 or 20 of those people have just died.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on? Is it a case of creatives tend to be more susceptible to addiction, or what's your view on that?
Well, I certainly am not. I've never been sensitive or addicted, and I see myself as a creating person. So for me personally, no. It's so hard to say, the whole, what was it? They all died at 27?
Yeah, the 27 Club, yeah.
Right, yeah. Would they have, what would have happened afterward? Or were they successful because they used all those drugs? I don't think so. I still remember all the stuff. I've been partying with the guys, and you come home at 4 o'clock, totally pissed. You grab that guitar. Oh, great! You record it and you listen to it the next day, and it's awful. I never had that. Like under the influence, I suddenly created a masterpiece. Not at all. I have to.
Yeah.
But then I'm not a genius. I'm totally not. And I know because I've worked with geniuses, the people I told you about who were successful at a very early age. I've never had that. I really had to work hard for it. But yeah, that doesn't really answer your question, basically, because I don't know about other people. I can only tell you how I see it. But of course, if you're in that world, you come into contact with it, and that's you have to be strong not to give in. My touring days, I toured for 15 years, and really there was lots and lots of drugs and lots of alcohol. And it's so easy, it's up there for grabs. The ladies too, and everything, and you have to be really strong not to do it. And I did it as well, but I knew my limits and I knew when to stop. And but a lot of those people didn't, and they're not here anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. I was just reading Mark Morton from Lamb of God's book, and but I've got to be honest, mate. It reads like an alcoholic in a junkie's diary. There's
Whoa, yeah.
I mean, most of the book, the crux of the book, is about him diving into addiction and sharing that story, and it's just so
Whoa.
common as you
Yeah.
when I say as you've experienced the people around you, and it's yeah, the only advice, speaking as a parent, the only advice I've got for my kids is just don't start drinking. It just doesn't seem to
No.
be it's worth. It seems like people are getting. I don't know your view, of
But
course.
then again, I drank plenty, and I had a lot of fun drinking.
Yeah, same too. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So don't drink. I don't know if that's the solution. Uh, you know, maybe it's also an age thing. Yeah, it's so hard to say. Will you get through it unscathed? Will you be strong enough to at some point to say, okay, that was it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I had some good times being drunk.
No, I'm with you, and I think you've given a really solid response to that because I'm with
Yeah.
you. Look, I met my wife. We worked together, but we actually met in a bar associated with the workplace, and
Right.
that's how we
Yeah.
got to know each other. And without that, we wouldn't have met.
True. No, and I'm a really shy person. I wouldn't dare to go to a girl. When I wouldn't be drunk or whatever, or at least.
Yeah, same. It was like that for me too.
Really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even with Laurie, the first time was like, well, we were pretty pretty out there. Would I ever have dared that if I would have been sober, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm hearing
Difficult
you.
one. I'm glad I don't have any kids. I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know. I know how to raise my doggy. I mean, he's very,
Beautiful. Yeah.
very nice here, lying here by my side.
Yeah.
But kids, whoa, man, I don't envy you. I don't know if I could do it.
Well, the biggest challenge these days, and it doesn't matter who I speak to, from Iceland to the United States, the UK, wherever people live, is device usage. iPhones and iPads, they are just, it's like heroin for children.
Yeah.
And it's very tough, brother. It's very tough to get them to see logic in it.
That's
Yeah.
it. The phones and shit. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Oh
mate.
my God, it's horrible. Even when kids are outside, we go walking every day for 5K.
Yeah.
And also through a village here, and there's no people outside, no kids outside. And when
No.
they are, there's 3 kids walking like this, and it's unbelievable. It's like, how are you gonna? You can't tell them you can't have a phone, and whoa, again, I don't envy you.
Well, can you imagine here in Australia with our climate where it never gets cold, in certainly, above Victoria, the state of Victoria, it hardly ever gets cold. I grew up playing cricket and rugby outside. It's what you did.
Right.
But you don't see it now. You see none of it now.
No, you don't. No,
awful.
no, the fields are empty. We have sports fields here. They're always empty, and we're always talking about it like, shit, man.
Yeah.
We're so glad when you see people on their kids, playing without any phones. It's happened so rarely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Mate, it's a tough one. Yeah. Hey, look, I'll make this my last question for you. I hope I haven't missed it, but please tell me you've got a book coming out soon, an autobiography.
I've been asked many times, coincidentally last week, of people wanting to help me with that. Because as I told you, I never read a book. So writing a book would be quite a challenge. The thing is, if I would do that, I would also give the dirt, It would be a very boring, one-sided story if everyone was nice and everything was cool. And I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to tell the truth about people.
Oh, okay.
I would hurt them. And
I think you should tell the truth, though. I think you've earned the right to tell the truth.
Yeah, but I can't. I could not live with that. If that book being out there and me talk, I'm getting all emotional about it. people reading that about themselves, and I already I said some stupid things in the press. It's how I don't know if you know about the Bruce Dickinson incident.
Hmm. No,
Of
I
course,
don't
he
know it.
sang.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
he sang on an Ayreon album, and he came to my house, and we had so much fun. And we were playing music, at Deep Purple and Hawkwind all night. And next day we were recording, and it went great. And then um, the social media was just starting to happen, and the internet and shit. And I said something about Bruce. I won't get into details. It wasn't anything terrible. Anyway, it spread like wildfire, and it ended up at the Rod Smallwood desk, who is the
Oh, right.
manager of
Oh, yeah,
Iron Maiden.
yeah, yeah.
And he was not happy, man. Oh my God, I got like almost a court case.
Oh,
And
really?
the shitty thing was that Bruce wanted to do a solo album with me. He came specially to an interview I did in
Oh
Antwerp.
my God.
Let's do a
Yeah.
solo album. And we had 4 songs finished, which eventually turned into a Star One album. And of course, the whole thing was cancelled.
Oh,
And same thing, I won't say who, but I said something about a recording session with a female singer. She's actually one of the most famous female singers in the world right now.
hmm.
That it really didn't go well because I just wanted to be honest in my interviews. And of course, she read it or whatever. Someone in the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
management read it, and yeah, it was terrible. I never worked with her again, of course, and I never had the chance to explain it. But yeah, no, that's exactly the reason why I would never do.
Yeah.
Maybe again at the very last moment, the same moment I'm gonna take all the mushrooms and all the ecstasy and shit. When I don't give a shit anymore, maybe then I'll spill the beans
Yeah,
but
I'm with you on that. I've got to be frank though, these sites like Blabbermouth and Metal Injection and all the bullshit, they're always going to be there. It's up to the fans to stop reading this shit and to stop being
mm,
invested in this stuff, but they can't help it. And I've had tons of stuff from conversations that I've had very innocently, by the way. I think you can tell that. I just try to get to the bottom of things because my day job is as a journalist, so I just approach
mhm.
this in a similar manner. And you ask questions and, Derek from Sepultura, or whoever it was, and they literally get thrown under the bus by these clickbait sites. And I can't do
Oh,
anything about it because I might have had the conversation, but it's out there now and there's nothing, they don't care about me, by the way. I'm just a bloke having the chat, but anything
yeah,
for hits and clicks for advertising revenue. And I just wish fans understood that better.
right, totally, yeah,
Yeah, it's up to the fans, mate. They're the ones with the power to go, you know what, we're not buying into any of this bullshit. Okay. And
yeah.
it's actually you get to an age, I'm in my mid to late 40s, and you get to an age where gossip just isn't interesting. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
No,
But people
no,
still
I don't give a shit either.
so
And they're trying to clickbait you, and sometimes it's tempting, I must say. Um, but I force myself not to click on it.
Oh, I'm with you. I'll scan
Just
Blabbermouth just to see if they've picked up stuff from our chats or whatever, the chats that I have. But
okay, cool.
that's the only reason I do. And usually it's all lately it's almost always been on the question I just asked you there about your book. So that might even come up in the Blabbermouth that a book
Okay.
won't come out for these reasons or what have you. But it's the last chat I think I had was with Glenn Benton from Deerside, and it was that. Then they picked up on that it was a couple of months ago now, I think it was. But yeah, mate, yeah, it's we live in, as the Chinese curse says, we always live in interesting times, though, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I'm happy to be living in this time, and I'm very happy to have lived in the pre-computer time. So happy that I had that.
Yeah,
That
same.
little kid going to all the record shops in town, to look at these covers and discover shit, that was so magic. So I'm very glad I live in a good time, I think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, look, it's been magnificent to have this conversation with you. Thank you for doing what you've done. It is, I say this to you guys that have been doing it and made an impact. It is actually really important what you've done because people do suffer and music helps. And in that way, you're providing, God work through you in that way. So I think you need to hear that as well.
Totally, totally. I get so many emails every week, from people who were like really depressed, and they said, "You changed my life," with Human Equation, which is a very
Yeah.
psychological album, and that's why I do it. That's so inspiring, that gets me back into the studio. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you down here sometime in the very near future anyway. It'd be great to see you.
Chances are slim. Sorry for this recluse.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, but it'd just
Sorry.
be if someone throws a bunch of money at you, please don't hesitate.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Thanks very much again, brother. Really appreciate the conversation. It's been a good one.
Cool, Andrew. Talk to you next time.
Hope you enjoyed that chat with the great Arjen Lucassen. I certainly did. His music it's almost, I'm not going to say infinite, but you'd be spending many years trying to get your head around everything that he's been involved in and become somewhere near familiar with his many creative muses. Extraordinarily talented fella. I love those conversations with blokes like him. All right. There are more conversations over at scarsandguitars.com. If you like that one, check out my chats with members of bands such as Cradle of Filth, Death, Emperor even. They're up there. Immortal. If you love heavy and extreme metal in particular, I bring it. I bring it to you. All right, that's it from me. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until the next one, it's a goodbye for now.